What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of BR's Draft Board Show. I'm Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus, here to talk about a little bit of NFL draft here with you guys as we are on the eve of the college football playoffs. So today's episode, in the past we've done certain positional episodes. We've done, quarterbacks, we've done wide receivers, we've done guys like that. We even gone through a mock draft here on this show, but today we're focusing on the college football playoff, and I wanted to identify the top 10 prospects for the 2026 NFL draft that we're going to see maybe this weekend, but also when we get closer to New Year's, because there's a couple of these that are playing on teams that have buys here. But I wanted to look at the top 10 players that are going to play here in the college football playoff, because it's a little bit of a caveat. Every single time we get to this point of the year with draft prospects, we go, well, we got to wait to see it in the big game. Well, these are the big games. These are the biggest games that these guys are going to play in. So we're going to take a look at some PFF stats for all these guys. We're going to take a look at some film breakdowns for all of them as well. So let's get right to it. Let's start at number one overall. The number one player that I have for the college football playoff right now is Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State. He is my top graded player that we are going to see over the last month or so. And I'm just going to let you guys in on a little secret. There's a handful of Ohio State guys, because Ohio State is pretty stacked this year. But Caleb Downs, man, he is fantastic. I mean, he is probably the best prospect in this entire draft class. He really is. He can do it all. I understand, people are going to push back. They're going to say, oh, well, positional value. Where do you draft a safety? How valuable can this guy really be? How high are you going to take a player like this in the NFL draft? And I'll tell you, you can take him as high as you want, truly, in this class. I get it. There's positions that have a little bit more value, just innately built into what they play, right? Obviously, quarterback is at the very top of that list, but you get guys like pass rushers, pass protectors. Sometimes those elite wide receivers can hold a ton of value, but everything that Caleb Downs can do for your defense, he can do it in elite level. And I'm going to break this down in a second with his film, but he's a fantastic run defender. He's great in coverage. You can play him in single high situations as a safety, so he can allow you to play cover one, cover three. He can play in split high safety situations as a coverage safety when it comes to, cover two or quarters or whatever that looks like. He can play in those split safety sets as well. He's great in those robber rolls over the middle of the field. You could play him in man coverage against tight ends in the slot. He can do it all for you. I mean, when you talk about Caleb Downs, the kind of players that we're talking about are Kyle Hamilton, Antoine Winfield Jr., Derwin James. And I understand, like, those guys didn't necessarily get picked in the top 10, but I think that if you could go back and do it over, a lot of those guys are going half a round or maybe within the top 10, just knowing how good they've been in their NFL careers. I truly think that Caleb Downs can be another one of those impact players. Okay, so let's bring up the Microsoft Surface. Let's break down some of these players, and let's break down this first play that we have here from Caleb Downs. Let's see, pulling it up now. All right, so this one's in the Purdue game. All right, let's go straight to that. This one's from the Purdue game. And before we even hit play, this is where Caleb Downs is, okay? So he's the single high safety on this play. And you're going to see one of these wide receivers, they're going to be coming over the middle of the field, and you're going to watch Caleb Downs. He's sort of assessing things. I think that there's something to the instincts of being a great center fielder defender, which is what we would call Caleb Downs in this situation. He assesses things, but then you also see the anticipation, the recognition, the instincts for when he needs to jump on this route. So he's moving around a little bit. He sees that, okay, things are flowing towards this side of the field. That's where sort of the strength is going. But then he sees a guy, then he obviously turns his head because he sees that this player is going to be coming right into his zone where he is over the middle of the field. He doesn't get the interception here, but he times it perfectly to where he's making that catch incredibly difficult. He's bouncing the ball up in the air, and his teammate gets it. But something else I really love about this play, and something I love about Caleb Downs, watch what he does afterwards. Just watch this little interaction here between him and the wide receiver. He lets him know a little bit. He lets him know that he just got big boyed over the middle of the field. He really does. And look, playing defensive back, I say it all the time. You got to believe that you're the baddest dude on the field, whether you're a corner, whether you're a safety, whatever, because part of the job is honestly getting beat, but you can't let that affect your confidence too much. And Caleb Downs doesn't. It's one of those plays where it not only showcases his ability as a center fielder, how to manage that space in coverage, the instincts to be able to break on that ball, get there right as the wide receiver was getting there, force the ball up in the air, the teammate gets the interception there. So I think that he is just one of the best players in this entire draft class. Positional value, we're going to hear that over the next couple of months, but just do not forget everything that this guy can bring to the table. I think that he's absolutely fantastic. We got a first question in the chat here for those of you guys who are watching the show live, which we appreciate. Who should the Eagles draft in the first round of the 2026 NFL draft, and what are their needs? Well, Eagles are pretty much one of the most stacked teams in the NFL, to be honest with you. And when you look at the Eagles' needs, I think a lot of it is getting ahead of stuff. So, maybe you look at the defensive line, specifically the edge rush positions, and you say to yourself, okay, well, the edge play wasn't as good for them this year as it has been in the past. And so maybe you look at edge rusher for them. They've got two great corners in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, but they still need that CB3 on their team when they go to their nickel base. And so I think that a third cornerback, I think, could be a good selection there for them, depending if they have a chance to get maybe a Jermon McCoy from Tennessee, a Mansour Delane from LSU, those corners. Maybe you're even thinking about a Brandon Cisse from South Carolina. I think those guys are options for him. Maybe offensive line as well. The offensive line just wasn't as dominant this year. Lane Johnson's getting a little bit older. He was beat up a little bit this year. And so maybe if you have the opportunity to draft one of these tackles a little bit later, maybe somebody like a Spencer Fano or Francis Mauigoa from Miami. Like, I think that those are players that, if they happen to get to where Philadelphia is ending up picking Caleb Lomu from Utah as well, I think that they could maybe they'd consider those positions, because I think that Howie would like to reload there on those. Good question, though. Good question to start us off here on the show. Number two on the list. Number two in prospects in the 2026 NFL draft that we were watching for the college football playoff is Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. And it kind of has to be, right? The Heisman Trophy winner. And, from Fernando Mendoza, I want to give him all the credit in the world, because it felt like the entire season we were saying to ourselves, okay, but wait, let's see it against better competition. Let's see it in the big game. And he went into the Big Ten title game. He got absolutely rocked at the beginning of it. And he came back and he played incredibly well. They win that game, and they're the number one seed in the college football playoff. And so he's already played in one major game that we've seen this season. And obviously with them having the bye, we don't get to see them until New Year's Day. But very excited to see him potentially string together a very deep college football playoff and national championship run, because he's been playing fantastic. And you see a lot of those numbers on the screen there from Pro Football Focus. Elite passing grade when it comes to that deep passing grade, which you love to see. You need to be able to do that in the NFL. You've got to have the arm talent. You've got to have that ability, and he absolutely does. You see some really good numbers under pressure as well, above 70 as a graded player under pressure, which is a great number for any quarterback to have. So Mendoza's been stacking it this year. And number three on the list right behind him is another quarterback that I can't wait to see. And we don't have to wait too long for him. We get to see him this weekend. And that's Oregon quarterback Dante Moore. If Dante Moore is in this class, I think that he will absolutely be a top 5 overall pick, potentially even a top 3 overall pick. He has been playing so well this season in his first year as a full-time starter at Oregon. He was behind Dylan Gabriel last year. Originally started at UCLA, and then he was Dylan Gabriel's backup last year. And man, he has stepped in, and he's fantastic. I think that the way that he operates the game is so clean from a first-time full-time starter perspective. He's one of the younger prospects in this class. He's only a true junior. He definitely does not have to declare in this class, but to be honest with you, I think that NFL teams are going to be trying to convince him to go, because if he does, like I said, I think that he's a top 5 overall pick. You see some numbers there on the screen there from Pro Football Focus, which, by the way, you guys can see all these numbers yourself if you have a PFF Plus subscription. It's that completion percentage from him that I absolutely love. He is just so methodical. He is so on point. It feels like the ball is always going exactly where it needs to be. That true ball placement is there from him. Doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, not the best arm strength that you'll see for these NFL quarterbacks, but somebody who can absolutely slice and dice you up and down the field and win in a variety of different ways. I think Dante Moore brings a ton to the table, especially because you look at how he's one of the younger prospects in this class, and you know how much further he can grow. Alfonso in the chat saying the Raiders got to pick Mendoza, right? Well, I think that they would absolutely love to pick Fernando Mendoza. The tricky part is for the Las Vegas Raiders, they're currently picking number 2 overall. I'm not sure number 2 overall gets you Fernando Mendoza. I think that you've probably got to get up to number 1, because the Giants, they're picking number 1 right now. They've got Jackson Dart. We don't think that they're going to take a quarterback. They're going to trade down. right? There's no way that they're going to take another prospect and give up, the ransom that could be a number one overall pick quarterback. So the Raiders, even if they're sitting at number two, if they want Mendoza, they might have to pay a little bit of a price to get to number one to make sure that that could be the case. So if not, I think they'd be pretty happy with Dante Moore, to be honest with you. And we'll get to see him in some big games here in this college football playoff. We got somebody else in the chat saying the Titans need a wide receiver. Who should they pick? Well, they're sitting there with the number 3 overall pick as it stands today. If they were picking at number 3 overall, I think that they're probably going to go with a guy like Jordan Tyson. Now, the medicals have to check out for Jordan Tyson, who's the wide receiver from Arizona State. But to be honest with you, I think he's the best big play wide receiver in this draft. I think he's that true Z wide receiver who can play all 3 positions. He's hit that explosiveness that he has out of his releases, out of his stance, out of his route breaks to create that separation, even against press coverage. He's got great contested catch numbers. He's got the spectacular catches with the fully extended arms and the one-handed catches and the catches through contact. That's what a wide receiver 1 looks like, to be honest with you. Now, he's been beat up. He's been hurt in all 4 years that he's been in college football, so the durability questions are going to be there for him. But talent-wise, he would be the guy that I'm picking if I'm picking a wide receiver at the top. Well, there's somebody else that's sort of in this conversation that we'll get to in a little bit. But next on the list here, going back to the Ohio State well, let's look at Arvell Reese. Their apex predator is what I would call him because he's an off-ball defender. He's technically listed as a linebacker, but they'll play him on the ball as an edge rusher. They'll play him everywhere. And the reason why is because you guys can see in the clips that we're watching here, just a crazy athlete. And I'm about to break down a clip where I show you just pound for pound how strong this dude is. He's a little bit on the slender side if you want to play him full time on the line of scrimmage, but the conversation with him is going to be very similar to the one that we had with Jalen Walker from Georgia last year, where you look at this player who is just this elite, versatile box defender who can just do it all for you. But in the NFL, his best spot is the biggest return on investment that you're going to get for his talent is going to be on the edge. So again, you guys see the PFF numbers right there. They don't jump off the screen at you, but that's because what's being asked of him is so diverse. So he's not really honing one area of his game because he's flying all over the field for Ohio State. Now, again, Ohio State, they're not playing this weekend. We'll get to see them around New Year's, but this has been one of the most terrifying players in all of college football to go up against, and I'll show you why with this clip that we have here from Ohio State if we pull this one up. So they're playing Illinois. They're on the road here. This is where Arvell Reese is. So he's lined up as this edge defender here, but we don't have the very beginning of this clip, but if you take the clip back a little bit further, he's waltzing around the entire second level before the snap. You don't know whether this guy is going to be dropping back in coverage. You don't know if he's going to be going up the A gap. You don't know if he's going to be looping around the B gap, or now obviously he's standing outside. And so now you've got a situation where this offensive tackle doesn't know what to think. He's got a defensive end right in front of him, and then he's got Arvell Reese behind him. He doesn't know if this defensive end is going to come around the edge and Arvell Reese is going to crash here. He doesn't know if the defensive end is going to go on the inside, if Arvell Reese is going to come one-on-one. He has no idea. And that makes his job even more difficult because you see what happens when Arvell Reese gets a little speed to power runway here. Watch the power that this guy has. He's not the biggest dude in the world, but the leverage, the pop at contact, that long arm move, and just the leg drive to just take this offensive tackle all the way back in the lap of the quarterback. Watch this. Watch how impressive this is. This tackle didn't stand a chance. He's got him on his heels immediately. That is so impressive to convert your speed to power at that efficient of a level. That is a starting caliber offensive tackle that we have here in D1 of college football, and he made that guy look like he was just like a speed bump, that it was nothing to get over him and get beyond him and to get that sack there. So that's the kind of athletic potential that we're talking about with a guy like Arvell Reese, who is also a true junior. Now, let's go to the next guy here. This is another edge rusher, but built very differently. This is Miami edge rusher Ruben Bain. And when I say built very differently, it's because we're not talking about, okay, well, is he an off-ball or an on-ball linebacker? We're even talking about if he is an edge rusher or even an interior defender, maybe a three-tech defensive tackle, because this dude's listed at 6'3", 280 pounds. He is a force. He is tough to deal with on the edge there because of his size and the power that he has there. But it's beyond just that power. He's got a little bit of finesse to him as well. Just because he is a bigger defensive end doesn't mean he doesn't have some speed elements, some finesse elements to his game. Because to be honest with you, despite his size, he's not just a brute out there on the edge. He might have the best footwork and handwork of any edge rusher that I've watched here in this class. And look, the measurables, they're not going to be great for a NFL defensive end. I think the arms are going to show up a little bit shorter. You see that in his film. You see him miss some tackles just because he can't wrap guys up because the arms aren't as long. Like it's going to be a talking point with him. But you see, you could see the PFF numbers that we have on the screen there. 90s in run defense, in pass rushing against true pass sets, a top tier pass rush win percentage. It's all there for him. Now, he started out really hot at the beginning of the year, and some of that is carrying a lot of the statistics. But as of late, I feel like Miami hasn't played in a ton of big games, and here we are. Now they're playing Texas A&M this Saturday. This is going to be the test here because there's some future NFL offensive linemen on Texas A&M's offensive line. Can Ruben Bain sort of have his way there? And I wanted to show this one clip from Ruben Bain because again, you look at his size and you just think there's going to be a power guy on the edge, and he is. He can definitely win with power. This one's against my Florida Gators, so you know that I'm not being biased here because I'm showing you a clip against the Florida Gators, my alma mater here. I'm going to play this clip at a fourth of the speed of regular speed because I want you guys to see as he is approaching this tackle, watch what he does. He'll extend his arm to bait the offensive tackle into leaning their weight on his toes and even flashing their hands up. And when he does that, he doesn't actually make contact with them though. He shows a little ghost move, which is, you're putting that arm out there, you're acting like you're going to use a long arm move against him, but then you pull that arm back quickly, you dip your shoulder down, and then you rip around the outside shoulder. This is a perfect move. And if it wasn't for the offensive guard and the defensive tackle, I believe, getting pushed back this way, I think he would have won cleanly and would have gotten that sack even sooner. But watch this when it's in slow motion. You can see the finesse to his game. Oh, so I gotta slow it down. Hold on. Sorry. I gotta slow it down here for you guys. That was a regular speed. Pulling this back a little bit. All right, here we go. This is a fourth of the speed. Watch him flash that hand, bait the offensive tackle, and then get right underneath the shoulder pads. Boom. Okay, there. The hand went up, and you could see the offensive tackle. He's a little bit more on his toes. The hands are starting to come up, and right when that happens, he dips underneath. He gets the rip arm up, and it gets straight into the quarterback's lap. And like I said, if this commotion right here wasn't going on, I think he actually gets to Lagway a lot sooner, and that might have ended up being a forced fumble there on that play. But that just shows you the finesse that this big dude plays with. So Ruben Bain Jr., he brings a lot more to the table than you would expect for a bigger defensive end. He has some of the best feet, the best hands in the draft when it comes to pass rushing. Let's go back to Ohio State for our next guy, number 6 on the list. Their linebacker, true linebacker this time, Sonny Styles from the Buckeyes. He's had an unbelievable season. This is somebody who used to play safety. Now he's put on some good weight and he's playing at the linebacker level. The reason why Ohio State has the ability to move Arvell Reese all around the formation is because of what Sonny Styles does in the middle, because of how reliable he is, because of how good of a run defender he is, how strong he is, how fast he is, how much ground he can cover, everything. Going back to the Caleb Downs conversation with positional value with the linebacker spot. I understand that there's a lot of linebackers around the NFL who are starters and impact players who you don't have to draft in the first round. But this is a player who is this good, where you'd think about it. Not just as a first-round pick, but I'd even consider this guy in the top 10 because of everything that he could bring to the table. He's got great coverage athleticism. The coverage instincts are getting better from that second level. He is good as a blitzing pass rusher up the middle, up the A-gap. And then what you'll see here, you guys see on the screen, an elite run defense grade this past year in PFF system. And that's a stable metric. We identify that as a stable metric. When you are a good run defender and you have a good solo run stop percentage, good chance that that's going to transition to the NFL and that you're going to continue to be able to do that. Maybe not quite at that high of a level, but enough to feel good about that prospect in that area moving forward. And so there's a play from Sonny Styles that I wanted to show you guys from the Michigan game. It's a very simple play. There's not a lot going on here, but I want you to see just how fast the play speed of Sonny Styles, because this is a play where it's just a simple run play. The running back is just coming up the middle in between the tackles, and you'll notice that I believe it's the guard here is going to climb to the next level, and it's his job to stay in front of and obviously wall off Sonny Styles, who is the only box defender that we have here in between the tackles. And you will see Sonny Styles with a little sidestep and just an aggressive step forward and a rip of the arm up to get right by that guard as if it's nothing and make that tackle before the running back could even like set his feet up to potentially force a missed tackle there. So let's watch. Let's watch this one. We can watch this one at full speed and then maybe we'll watch it in slow motion. It's just the sidestep. It's just that sidestep right there is so aggressive, and the guard could have taken a better angle here, but he's able to cross the guard's body. Arm goes up to make sure that he's not able to latch on at all whatsoever, and then boom, he is straight at the running back at the line of scrimmage. And so we'll play this one a little bit slower, just so we can see this one here. But it's that play speed and that aggressive style that is so much fun to watch that I think every defensive coordinator would want as the tone setter in the middle of that defense. See him cross the body right there. The arm goes up clean, and he is just there, meets the running back right at the line of scrimmage, giving up no yards on it, and he's just able to make that tackle right there, and his guys are able to get in and help him too. It's one of those little things. I could have picked one of the coverage plays where he's able to, drop back into coverage and showcase that, but to be honest with you, it's the tone he sets at the second level and the athleticism that he has on top of that makes him such a great prospect. I think the world of Sonny Styles, and I'm not somebody who drafts linebackers early, but I draft this dude pretty early. Somebody in the chat's asking, what do you think the 49ers' biggest position of need is going into the draft? I think they did a really good job emphasizing the defensive line last year. Even though they're still void of some one-on-one pass rush winners, you're hoping that Mykel Williams can become that, and obviously missing Nick Bosa really hurts for them. But I think that maybe a one-on-one pass rush winner at some point, you could think about that. I look at wide receiver. They got a lot of bodies right now, but it looks like Brandon Ayuk's not going to be on the team next year. Jawan Jennings is a free agent. I think Ricky Pearsall is basically the only one who's under contract next year. So I think they're going to look at wide receiver and give wide receiver a good look, potentially even in the first round there. Maybe interior offensive linemen as well, depending on how they feel about with the development of those guys. But I think wide receiver, maybe one-on-one pass rush winner, and some interior offensive linemen, I think could make sense there. Next question in the chat: if the Jets don't move up for a quarterback, who could they grab? So the Jets aren't moving up for a quarterback. I think it's going to be an offensive weapon, right? I think that if they're not moving up for a quarterback, even though they have so many picks, they got 2 first-round picks this year, they've got 2 second-round picks this year, and then they have 3 first-round picks the following year, I might move back. If they're sitting at number 5, I might move back, and I might be okay with drafting, Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State, Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver from USC, Carnell Tate, who we'll talk about here in a second, the wide receiver from Ohio State. I'd be going offensive playmaker there, and I think you could maybe even trade back and still get a good offensive playmaker. We talked about one-on-one pass rush winner a little bit there. One of the best that we're going to have in the college football playoff is when Texas Tech lines up and plays, because David Bailey has been unbelievable, their edge rusher there. He has been truly one of the best pass rushers in all of college football, whether it's been at Texas Tech this year or at Stanford last year. Very high pass rush win percentage above 20% in each of the last 2 seasons. He's that stand-up outside linebacker type of pass rusher. And I think when you look at him, some people go, okay, is he just a designated pass rusher, though, right? Is he just somebody that a DPR that you want to play on third downs? I think he can hold up against the run. I really do. His run defense grades aren't as bad as you might think, even though his bread and butter is getting after the quarterback. But he is so good at that I think that holds first-round value. Anytime you are this successful at getting after the quarterback, it's from a technique standpoint, but also because David Bailey brings athleticism standpoint. I mean, he might have the best get off, like getting out of his stance when the ball was snapped, and maybe even the best like twitch and bend of any pass rusher in this class. Those are the traits that you always gravitate towards when you're talking about top tier edge rushers and guys that are going in the first round. So David Bailey, a fantastic prospect. I can't wait to watch him throughout the college football playoff because it's been awesome to watch him over the last 2 years. And he has definitely made his way from sort of a fringe first rounder, kind of like a top 50 pick into, okay, this guy wins every single week to the point where we're drafting him in the first round. So if you need a pure pass rusher, he's absolutely on the table here. Let's talk about Ohio State wide receiver Carnell Tate. That's the next guy that I want to mention here. I talked about him potentially as a target for the New York Jets, could be a target for the Cleveland Browns at number 4 overall, could be a target for the Tennessee Titans. I don't know about number 3. Again, I think these teams would probably be okay with, a guy like Carnell Tate or any of these wide receivers if they trade down a little bit. But still, the year that Carnell Tate is having, I went into this year like, man, is he just kind of a wide receiver 2 at the NFL level? And maybe he is, but what the tape that he's putting out, how reliable he is as a player and how well-rounded his game is, I think that he's got the ability for an offense to lean on him as potentially a wide receiver 1. He has some of the strongest hands in the entire country, certainly in the entire draft class. 0 drops, 0% drop rate this past season, and a 100% contested catch percentage. That's been unbelievable. Well, actually, it's not 100% contested catch percentage. It's the 100th percentile. But I think it's something like 85% of his contested catches he has come down with. He has been fantastic. And when I watched him last year, I saw the makings of a really good route runner and somebody who could win through contested catch situations. But I didn't know how athletic he was. I didn't know is he going to be able to threaten vertically every single play? I don't know about that. But this year, I think he's put some of that to rest. Is he going to be a 4.3 speed guy? No, I don't think that's going to be the case. But here, let's break down a play where he's the outside receiver here. And even though he's not winning with pure speed, he wins with a great combination of technique, football IQ, and then also explosiveness. And to be honest with you guys, I like that a lot better. So he gets open. He's the top receiver right here. He's going to go out of your screen for a little bit, but you'll see the finishing. You'll see the finishing touches on this play. But we'll get another angle after this. But just watch to give you a good idea of what's going on here. It's just a vertical route. He's going up into the sideline. A little bit of a fade here as we're going towards the sideline here. But great contested catch there through the contact. And watch what happens here. So this corner's got outside leverage on him. Outside leverage just means that the helmet is really in line with like the outside shoulder. Now, normally when we talk about leverage, we're talking more about press coverage, but you can see that he's aligned a little bit to the outside of where Carnell Tate is in his stance. So what Tate does here is he takes away this corner's leverage with how he runs the beginning of this route. Tate knows that eventually he wants to get up and to the outside, because that's where the route is going. That's where you're creating the space. You want to be able to make the catch at the sideline. But it's harder to do that when the corner has this outside leverage. That's the whole point, because you are closer to the sideline. So you're able to bump and run with him a little bit better, stay in the hip pocket, just make it more difficult for him to create that separation. But if you'll watch here, Tate is going to veer just a little bit towards the inside, not quite to like this point. He gets to about here, but in doing so, he forces this corner to move a little bit this way and open up his hips a little bit to all of a sudden Tate gets even with him, and then he puts his foot in the ground and he goes up this way, and the corner can't keep up with him. So watch how he's able to do that. A little bit inside, and then boom, he got that corner to open up his hips. He got that corner to open up his hips. Here, I'll play it a little bit slower. Let's go half speed here. Watch the corner. A little bit inside. Okay, now I'm going a little bit inside. Now his hips were fully open to the point where he was able to cross his body completely, get in front of him. Now he's getting that separation there. Obviously, a little bit of some hand fighting gives him a little bit of an extension there to get the separation, and then some good contested catching there from Carnell Tate. So that's part of his game where I was always worried a little bit about, was he going to be able to win as a vertical wide receiver? And I think that the subtleties in how he wins and makes up for maybe not being that 4.35 athlete That's the stuff that's so translatable to the NFL level. So it's what rounds out his profile really well and what makes me a big fan of Carnell Tate. Cassius Howell is the next player. We got two more players that we're running through here. The pass rusher for Texas A&M. We got a couple of pass rushers that we're going through here. And the reason why he's here, I can't wait to watch him versus Miami. Like, this is going to be a very fun matchup because we're going to see a lot of him versus, I think, Francis Mauigoa as well, who Francis Mauigoa lines up as the right tackle for the Miami Hurricanes. And Cassius Howell, more rushes on the left side, but there's a chance that we could see that matchup there. What I love so much about him is consistency. Now, this is a guy who the measurables aren't going to do him too many favors. He's going to have arm length, reportedly sub 31-inch arms, which is going to be single-digit percentile in the NFL. There's just not a lot of NFL edge rushers that have been very successful with that short of arms, but he's done it everywhere, man. The last 3 years, he's had an elite PFF pass rush grade. Really good pass rush win percentage as well. The fact of the matter is the guy just gets it done. And he makes up for that lack of arm length with how he gets off the ball, how he's using his hands are always active. He's always trying to stay clean. He's not trying to get in situations where the length of an offensive tackle's arms could really engulf him and stop him and allow them to get their hands on him inside. And so he wins in so many ways. The success is there, and it's proven success for so many years now for Howell. So even though he does have that shorter arm length, he is an NFL pass rusher. He is somebody who could be a difference maker. To just be curious to see where the NFL values him, given that lack of, I would say, length that he has from his arms. And the last player that we have, hold on. Before we get to the last player, I got something in the chat. I want to answer this one. Should Dallas trade up and go get Reese? What are your thoughts? I think it'd be tough for Dallas to do that because Dallas is currently, obviously, it'd be a great player. They would love to get themselves Arvell Reese. But the issue there is that I think Reese is probably going to go somewhere within, let's say, the top 7. Dallas, I believe, is currently picking 14th, 13th, somewhere around there. And unless they lose a couple more games here down the stretch, they'd have to pay a pretty penny to get up to that point to draft him. It's really great in theory, but you got to remember, you're already down a second-round pick from this year and a first-round pick next year due to the Quinnen Williams trade. So you just have to think about that. I don't know how much more aggressive Dallas is going to be when it comes to trading up. I think they're probably going to be a team that's going to stand pat and take whatever the best player available, really, as it comes to them in the middle of that first round there. Last player that we're talking about, Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. Now, this is somebody who I think coming into the year, everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is the next greatest tight end that's going to come through to the NFL. You know, shades of what Kyle Pitts was when he was at Florida. Just the insane athleticism that this guy has. Great blocker as well. Just a total package from Kenyon Sadiq. And it wasn't quite the year that we thought it was going to be. He just really hasn't been utilized in the offense as much as, honestly, we thought. And I don't think that that's any indictment on what could be his NFL ceiling or his overall talent. I still think that he is a difference-making NFL player. Pound for pound, he's a very strong blocker. He's got great overall athleticism. He can make you miss with good yards after catch numbers. He just really hasn't been utilized in the offense. And I just think it's a matter of Oregon's offense right now isn't emphasizing the tight end in the passing game. And I felt like they would have a little bit more given how much they were able to lean on Terrence Ferguson last year, who ended up getting drafted in the second round by the Rams. But even Terrence Ferguson, I felt like his production wasn't as good as it could have been. So I think it's just the nature of Oregon's offense. And we've got 2 elite games from Kenyon Sadiq this year, but we'll see in the college football playoff, right? Again, like we've got a matchup with Oregon this upcoming weekend, and I'm hoping that now that these are the biggest games that Oregon is playing this season, I really hope that we're seeing a lot more of Kenyon Sadiq, because I do think that he is an NFL player through and through. He is so talented. We just haven't seen him involved in the offense too much, but I think the fact that he's such a great blocker, they also love keeping him on the line of scrimmage to help out with the pass protection game too. So I'm not going to fault him for being a great blocker. In fact, the opposite. I'm going to give him a lot of credit for that. Last question that we have in the chat here before we wrap it up and get out of here. Haymaker's asking the Pats needs maybe a late round wide receiver. Potentially, I think, again, pass rusher could be big for them. Like, I think maybe they're going to be a team that's going to be in on Cassius Howell maybe at the end of the first round. Romello Height is another pass rusher that we have for Texas Tech on the opposite side of David Bailey, who I think could be a fringe first round player. So I look at pass rusher, and I think that that's probably an area where New England's going to emphasize a little bit, depending on how they feel about their offensive line. Much better this year compared to last year. Do they feel like they still need to maybe make another tackle addition with Morgan Moses getting a little bit older? I don't hate your wide receiver idea. I think that that could make sense for him, but clearly New England is playing well enough to where they can go best player available, I think, in this draft, and that's always a fantastic place to be. Before we wrap things up, I asked the Microsoft Copilot, which of course you guys can do as well if you have a Microsoft Surface and Copilot, which schools in this year's college football playoff have had the most players drafted over the last 3 years. And number one, it's the University of Georgia. 33 players that they have had drafted over the last 3 years. That's incredible. Right behind them is the University of Alabama with 27. You get Ohio State right after them with 14. And then Oregon tying things up with 14 as well. So those are the top four teams. And like I said, if you guys have a Copilot, you can ask them questions like that and so many more. Appreciate everybody watching live. I love when you guys watch live and you guys can get the questions in. It's always fun. I'm so excited for the college football playoff. Like I said, as a draft analyst, yes, you watch every game and take things from it, but the games that mean something, rivalry games, conference championship games, certainly college football playoff games, they mean a little something extra when it comes to the scouting report and how you play. So very excited to see how these 10 prospects and so many more prospects play over the next month as we get ready to crown a national champion here. So appreciate you guys watching. Always enjoy getting to do these. Once again, I'm Trevor Sikkema, the lead draft analyst from Pro Football Focus. If you love the numbers that you saw on some of the graphics here, you can see those yourself with the PFF Plus subscription by going to pff.com. But until next week, thanks guys for watching. This has been another episode of the BR Draft Board Show. See you next week.